Alrighty. It's so late, and I'm not going to be able to be on here for that long. But we need to do a couple hours. So, hello? Hello? Stream me from Phoebe. Yes. Hello, Aria. You're in your new apartment? Nice. Nice. Apartment? Nice. Nice. Okay. I'm glad you're in your new apartment, Margot. That's so freaking cool. Getting housed is the next big step up towards whatever the major goals you have in life are. So I'm glad you're able to take that step. And I know you've been really going through it lately in terms of your housing, so I'm glad that you're not in that situation anymore. Don't forget to fill your fish back up when you drink it and to fill up your wife's tank after you drive her. Yeah, 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 for sure. Inky Capelli, it is just hilarious to me that that is still like the funniest thing in the world to you. Like, let's see, February, April. Like 3 months later, it has been such a long day. I bet it has. But now you're at the end of the day, you're in your own apartment, and it's yours, and you get to be in a space that you're allowed to be, in a place that is probably going to be a lot more quiet than the bar parking lot was. So that's awesome. You can look back at today's efforts as a exhaustion well earned. I'm trying desperately to make this work, guys. I swear to you, I am. Oh. Watch the stream get no views and go nowhere because the first 20 minutes of it are all technical difficulties. Don't you love that? You like French toast? I do too. Who doesn't? Anyway, Margot, I'm glad that you were finally able to get into an apartment, and I know that today probably seemed like a really long day, but hopefully you can look back on the efforts of today and the exhaustion you feel now as a bit of well-earned exhaustion after the efforts needed to secure the next step in your life. So that's good. You look like a technical difficulty, brother. Number one, I am no one's brother. Number two, very lame insult. Totally lame. Like early 90s lame. Late 80s lame, maybe. What are we doing? I don't know. How do we feel about talking about the absolutely batshit insane bipartisan resolution introduced in the House to condemn Hasan Piker, a streamer, mind you, a streamer? I cannot even remember the last time a congressional resolution was used to condemn like a specific figure, much less one whose cultural position is so small in comparison to the assumed positions of anybody involved in government. I think it really does go to show you, number one, how much control Israel and Israeli politics exercises over American political tendencies. But I think it also just goes to show you how little the Congress is actually focused on the matters that actually affect everyday Americans. Because instead of trying to force our way out of this Iran war on a congressional level, instead of trying to, I don't know, but instead of trying to hold up some of this critical legislation until the needs of the people are met, instead of anything that would actually help people, they are focused instead on a bipartisan effort to condemn some random streamer for anti Semitism. And what are they codifying as anti Semitism in this resolution? Criticism of Israel. Isn't that interesting? The United States Congress seems to have a bipartisan interest in um what's the word I'm looking for? God damn it, I can't think of the fucking word. Equivocating, thank you. Um, the United States Congress seems to have a bipartisan interest in equivocating the definition of anti-Zionism and the definition of anti-Semitism, which is a very dangerous thing to codify, especially if you are any kind of person here in America who's interested in the end of forever wars in the Middle East. And once again, it goes back to this like consistent trend of Israeli political control and outsized influence in American politics that is only allowed to persist because American billionaire interests have so much to gain from our presence there. But these are the lengths to which they are willing to go. They are willing to waste U.S. taxpayer time and money and effort on an effort to officially condemn Hasan Piker. Dude, honestly, it's the biggest compliment that they could have possibly paid Hasan. The dysfunctional, do-nothing piece of shit United States Congress doesn't like you? You must be doing something right. And Citizens United, 100%. I mean, that's not the only policy change that needs to happen, but yeah, that's one of those things that if you changed it, pretty much within 4 years, you would see a complete transformation in the way American politics works. Hasan Piker wants to kill the rich. He literally said it on his podcast. Damn, sucks. Maybe the rich that he's got in mind should stop being piece of shit billionaires that want to rape the rest of the world and turn us all into a fine red paste. You know? Oh no. Damn it. Alright, I'll be right back. Oh. And we're back. Okay. And what qualifies you to determine their mental state? I bet you have trouble telling if your partner is happy or not. Maybe start there. Ooh, we got fire in the chat. Here's Breath of the Rotting. Oh, does seeing like actual human beings who aren't like created by AI algorithms make you uncomfortable or something? What are your thoughts on gay Satan? Gay Satan? Based, I think. Why you look like my gay aunt? How do you know I'm not your gay aunt? Is her name Phoebe? I might be. Taylor, I forget you have a brother sometimes. I legitimately do. What do we think of the shutdown ending? Got funded with the exception of ICE and CBP. Thank you for reminding me that that happened. It is a it is a huge left. I'm sorry. It is a huge win for the American left that is being framed as a win mainly for the Democratic Party. I don't think it's a win for the Democratic Party. I think it's something that the Democrats were pressured into doing by concerted effort on the part of the people. If American leftists had not stood up and denounced this kind of behavior so roundly, I don't think Democrats in the House and Senate would be fighting it, even to the degree they are. And they aren't fighting it as hard as they could be. But the fact that the Republicans finally had to cave on funding DHS without ICE and CBP is a huge win for the American left. And what it should go to show you is that concerted effort on the part of a united populace, not just the American people, but concerted effort on the part of a united populace can achieve change, even when the people in power, the people that hold the majorities in the halls of power, are not necessarily people that align with the party you usually vote for. So I personally am really glad to hear it. The Department of Homeland Security is ultimately a pretty new institution, and I think a lot of its functions could be done by other cabinet departments like they used to be. But insofar as the DHS exists in its modern form, there are things that it does that are necessary for the function of our society, the smooth, efficient function of our society at the very least. And it's good that those things are getting funded, with the exception of ICE and CBP. This is the exact concession that the left has been fighting for most of the last year. Let me guess, your father went out for a pack of smokes and never returned? My parents got divorced when I was 14, but they got back together when I was 25, so, does it count? The left are a bunch of nut jobs. Hey, thanks for that really well thought out and well explained dissertation on why we're specifically wrong about the things that we specifically say about very specific topics. That's a really appreciated comment, and it really does add just a tremendous amount to the discourse. Do you think there's a possibility for a queer struggle supporting Transnistrian independence from Moldova? Maybe even with a Satanist angle? I have no fucking idea. As is the case with most American leftists, I'm not nearly well read enough on global issues to be able to answer this question with any degree of intelligence. Are you a proud MAGA? No, I fuck on MAGA for a living, actually. Speaking of which, if you've been enjoying the stream, consider supporting. Thank you so much. The left is wrong on budgets. It's funny that you would say that because right now, under a concerted effort on the part of both parties to consider to become considerably more conservative in their fiscal policy, we have actually set up an economy that is fundamentally unsustainable, and in particular, an American economy which is bound and destined to fail because we've allowed our billionaires and our corporations to globalize their profits to such a degree where they are no longer reliant on the solvency or sustainability or long-term integrity of America for them to succeed. Dirty Dan, thank you for subscribing to the membership. What a gent. Welcome to Shrouded Parishioner. What kind of acoustic is that behind you, G? It's a Fender CC60S. We need to stop the debt ceiling and go back to the gold standard. I mean, that wouldn't really fix it, friend. I'm sorry. There is more. I don't know if you understand this, but there is more. Like the U.S. owes more money than we could pay off by going back to the gold standard. It's just not possible. I mean, that's why we kind of have to start doing the things that me and a bunch of other lefties suggest when it comes to the economy, regardless of what capital flight might happen, because it's either we let them rape this country literally to death until there's not another spare drop of blood that can be sucked out of the stone, and then we're left with like a dry, desiccated husk that none of us can use for anything, or we make some changes now, deal with some necessary restructuring in the economy in the aftermath, and have a more functional society that is prepared to last for another 500 to 1,000 years. Rando makes Roblox content and thinks they have a leg to stand on. It always is the weirdos and chuds that have the most to say about the kind of shit that I do. It really is people with like 0 view, low interaction content, like 2,000 subs, talking shit on me, whose channel has experienced consistent growth over the like year and a half, 2 years I've been streaming. We pay $1 trillion a year at interest on our national debt. We will again next year and the year after that. Not a dollar paid towards the principal. Right. And think about how long that can be sustainable. I mean, it can be infinitely sustainable if America is somehow always able to keep itself in a position where our currency is the global reserve currency and where everybody trusts us, yada, yada, yada. But it's not really sustainable if that isn't the case, and it's especially unsustainable if you globalize the economy and globalize people's access to the economy to such a high degree that your country's billionaires and corporates no longer have to have any real allegiance to the country they operate within. Social globalism is a good thing. Capitalist globalism is the worst fucking nightmare that has ever happened. I'll repeat that again for those in the back. Social globalism, as in the ability for me to have audiences from all over the world, the ability for human beings to get on a plane or a boat and travel to anywhere on this planet and explore it, is a good thing. capitalist globalism, as in the idea that a corporation in America can be an American corporation, hire almost nothing but Americans, but have almost none of its facilities in America, and still yet profit massively over the American economy. Um, that kind of thing is a modern idea, and that's what I mean when we talk about global, or I'm sorry, capitalist globalism. That's what we're talking about. The idea that there is no longer any allegiance that needs to be paid by the rich and powerful in the countries in which they live and profit. Palantir, for example, yeah, Palantir is a great example, yes. If America fails, Palantir's products can be sold to a dozen different countries, all of which might have different interests from us. Nazis don't delineate, they just say globalists. Yeah, I know. But if you aren't a Nazi, you have to delineate, right? I feel like you almost have like a social responsibility to delineate if you're not a fucking Nazi. It may come off as a rude question, but I'm really so curious. I've never grown up around gay people or anything like that. College every person I've ever met has sexual trauma. Like, why is that a thing? It's literally all of them. So, number one, there's some evidence to believe that queer people are more likely to be sexually assaulted as children. The degree to which that is connected to their queerness is unknown, but that the tendency is there seems to be true. Personally, I don't actually think it's that gay people are inherently more likely to be assaulted as children. I think it's that we have a way bigger sexual assault on children problem than we like to talk about here in the West. And it's mostly queer people who end up talking about it because in order to come out as queer, right? Like, I mean, especially if you're in a college environment or something like that, like you might realize that you're gay, but to even get as far as knowing the terminology to describe that, you're probably going to come into contact with other you're probably going to come into contact with other sexual liberation arguments, including arguments about consent and topics like that. And so I think queer people are more likely to be aware of the fact that what they went through as children was in fact sexual abuse. Now that's not to say that like I'm saying that every person was abused as a kid, because that is absurd, but I think that it's a much bigger problem than we realize. Um, and I think that the reason why it seems like it's just the case with every gay person, where it's not the case with straight people, is because I think it is pretty common for straight people to have a lot of those events normalized, and it's fairly uncommon for a straight person with no real reason to be exploring deeper queer theory to come into contact with some of the arguments you might have to hear in order to really know. Like, there are people who go through their lives having something that happened to them when they were a kid, but they don't quite know how to feel about it. They feel weird about it. They feel ashamed about it. They know it affected them in some way, and they don't really trust that person that it happened with anymore. But they don't quite know that they were assaulted, and they don't even talk to anybody about it. Maybe they do know on some level, but but like this reticence to report, I think, comes along with a whole slew of hang-ups and resistances that are more common among straight people than they are among queer people. Excuse me. Most serial killers are not LGBT. Yeah, I mean, they'll all bring up John Wayne Gacy, but it's like, I mean, Gacy and Dahmer, can you really point out any other ones? Like, most of the big ones you think about, other than Dahmer, are heterosexuals. Like you said, Ted Bundy, BTK, Ed Gein, Green River, etc., etc. And besides that, one of the weird things about Dahmer's psychology is that I think that there's a pretty good argument to be made that if Dahmer had been born in 2006 instead of 1956 or whatever it was, maybe Dahmer wouldn't have killed. Dahmer was a gay man who lived at a time when America was just kind of slowly starting to become comfortable with gay people. And perhaps if Dahmer had grown up in an environment and in a culture that was openly accepting of queer people and so inviting to people about exploring their sexualities and exploring their bodies, who the fuck knows? Maybe Dahmer would never have killed. Maybe like there's an argument to be made that the stressors of the society in which Dahmer lived might have played a role. So even if you do bring up Dahmer as an example of queer people going insane and doing insane shit, I think that there's an argument to be made even there that the answer is less homophobia. But I guess we can debate that. No, Dahmer had all the traits of psychopathy, Phoebe. Sorry, it's just not true. Fair enough, but like there are people who are psychopaths that don't become serial killers. And there are stressors along that pathway, at least from what I understand. And that's all I wonder about. But either way, I'm sure me and you, Taylor, would agree that the answer is not blaming gay people for serial killers as if we represent some kind of like statistically relevant tendency. You're right when you say that it's usually a cis straight male thing. Like, you know, my argument is just that even when it comes to dudes like Gacy and Dahmer, I think that there's an argument to be made. I'm not saying that it's necessarily true. I'm not saying I necessarily believe it. I'm just saying that there's an argument to be made, and I'm not smart enough to necessarily refute it outright. And I think that it might actually be helpful in the discourse that maybe if conditions had been different, they might have been psychopaths, maybe abusive in the relationships, but maybe they wouldn't have killed. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not saying that that's true. It's just worth noting. And I think either way you approach the issue, either way you slice the apple, what you should still end up with is something that accepts the reality that queer people are here. We're here to stay. We're not fucking going anywhere. We're not an aberration, and Jeffrey Dahmer does not represent us. Dahmer's is more of a case of not taking mental health seriously. His father knew there was something wrong with him and didn't act. You know what, Taylor? I will actually say you're 100% right. That is actually probably a better point. Yeah. Because it's really worth noting that, like, if you read, which I haven't read it all the way through, but if you read Dahmer's dad's book, um, I forget what it's called. My Son Dahmer, I think. Um, but if you read his dad's book, he talks about that. And if you watch any media that surrounds Jeffrey Dahmer and you listen to the tapes and shit like that, it's talked about. And it seems pretty obvious that there were warning signs from very early on in Jeffrey's life that he was a profoundly fucked up individual that probably needed, like, you know, inpatient care for a long time. Gnosis comes from Latin. It's an old word. It's an intensely old word. So don't let anyone lie to you and act like it's something that trans people invented back in 2015. What you smoking, bud? What you smoking, bud? I thought you was a female. I am a trans woman, which means I was assigned male at birth, but I've been living as a woman for the last 6 years. I don't have any sympathy for someone who'd murder an innocent human. I'm not really asking you to have sympathy for Dahmer, but there's a utility in understanding these types of psychopaths, killers, depraved people, because as me and Taylor were talking about earlier, there are things that could have been done in a lot of their cases that could have, at the very least, prevented them from doing harm to society. Maybe they could not have been made into productive people who would have had healthy relationships, but maybe they could have been, at the very least, noticed quickly and placed in an environment that would have minimized their capability to harm other people. We have to talk about these things. By the way, if you've been enjoying the show, please consider supporting with a super chat or a Cash App donation. Either way helps, and I appreciate it a ton. Does your pipe have a filter? No. Probably should, though. It's not a bad idea. Pathetic attention seeking, says the person pathetically attention seeking in my chat. A little hard to make the attention seeking argument when that's clearly what you're doing in my chat. Did you just spit in your room? I have a trash can, like any civilized human being should. Are you ever going to work a day in your life? I'm incredibly lucky that at this part of my life, I no longer have to spend my days doing complete drudgery, where most of the profit that I generate goes to people I'll never meet, for whom I do not care. I'm incredibly lucky in that regard. Being self employed is a real privilege. Especially in this fucked up capitalist system that we live in. But for the information of any of those curious, before I started doing this, before I was monetized on YouTube, I worked at a factory, and before that I worked at a Taco Bell for 2 years. Before that, I lived in a minivan off and on for 2 years, but even then, when I would settle down during the winter, I would work at Walmart or Waffle House, or for a while, it's about 6 months in 2023, I lived in Massachusetts. I worked at a resort hotel. I started out working for other people, at least at 16. I used to work for my family and their small business when I was a kid, but I don't really count that because I'm like, who would, you know? But I started out as a cart pusher, moved on to cashier, and between that time and this, I've worked all kinds of jobs. Most of them completely, inarguably blue collar. I don't know if any of them would have qualified as white collar jobs. Certainly, this is the most money I've ever been capable of making. Not just because of the arrangement by which I'm paid out and everything, but also just because of the earning potentials difference between making my own content and controlling the direction of my own production versus working for someone else who determines the basis upon which I'm paid. Mm. Did you know that etymologically a woman is technically just someone's wife? Yes, that is a interesting little etymological fact about the word woman. Yes. And what is a wife but a complex set of social expectations? For that matter, what is a husband but a complex set of social expectations? Try not to cough. So you want to be a capitalist? No. Ideally, if I ever get big enough to start actually relying on people regularly, I would like to turn my business into a cooperative where I share in the profits equally with everybody involved. Spoken like a true libtard. Spoken like a conservative cunt with no argument. How do you see your mom in your eyes? What do you mean? I think she's a really wonderful human being. I don't know. I know this sounds cheesy and corny maybe, but I feel like my mom's kind of like my hero, you know? I feel like that sounds really lame, but ultimately if you want to know where I got the ability to be so quick and witty and social, where I got my tendency towards edginess and irreverence, it's all from my mom. You know, after my parents divorced, I went to live with her, and she raised me pretty much on her own for the next, I don't know, like 8 years after that. And as a result, I adopted a lot of tendencies of hers that I was already kind of leaning into already, but like, I don't think I would be able to do this as a job had I not had the pair of parents that I had, and especially my mom. Because I can see the influence that she had whenever she's telling a joke, or whenever I remember old jokes that she's told and old stories and stuff like that. I can see the influence in her storytelling style and her way of explaining things and gesticulating and everything. I can see her influence in me, so if that's what you're talking about, then I hope that's a good answer. I don't really know. I feel like the question was a little vague, to be honest. You don't engage with people that challenge you? That's pretty much all I do, honestly. Occasionally I happen to land on a better comment, but like for the most part, I tried to challenge somebody earlier. I don't think they issued much of a response. You aren't witty or intelligent? I mean, okay, you can say that. Lots of people disagree with you, though. The word admiral comes from an Arabic military title that the French people thought sounded quite bougie. I think I've heard of that before too. And it makes sense. I mean, the French were cool about that shit. The French have adopted, if you look into it, French and Spanish both, Now, in the case of Spanish, it's more because of conquest, but um, when it comes to French, a lot of it really is just like, man, that sounds cool. Yeah, start using that. It's like algebra comes from an Arabic term, algebra. Doing a social count, do you fuck with Juice World? Yes. I fuck with Juice World. Oh, yeah, you know what? Since Juice World's being brought up, hot take. Haven't had occasion to say it in a while, but the war on drugs killed Juice World. Juice World did not kill himself. Juice World would have never swallowed those drugs had it not been for a snitch ass pilot and a snitch ass fucking federal government and a needless war on drugs. Had it not been for a massive fucking penalization incentive and everything else to exist around this fucking specific activity, Juice World would have had no reason to swallow all those drugs to try and hide them from the airport security and from the fucking feds and shit. So, he should have never had them in the first place. Why is it your fucking place to tell Juice World what he does or does not put into his own body? Why is it my place to tell you what you can and cannot put in your body? I wouldn't want you telling me what I can put in mine. Like, how far do you want to extend this logic, motherfucker? Because when it comes to things that have ill effects on human beings, I think we ought to get started on the Big Mac before we worry about heroin. You want to talk about what's sending people to their fucking graves? Let's get started on cigarettes and Big Macs. It's a law you can't travel with those drugs, right? But you're like not listening to the conversation or being willfully ignorant, because my hot take was, once again, the war on drugs killed Juice World, as in the very policies that you're referencing right now. If those policies did not exist, Juice World would have had no reason to swallow those drugs, because there would have been no threat of the FBI locking him up for them. I will say, I'm far right and Christian, but this is against my religion, but I highly respect you for liking Juice WRLD. Also, he didn't swallow them at once. Someone else had the duffel bag with the drugs. As far as I know, he died from overdose because he swallowed a few packages that he had on him that he didn't expect to have to really fucking smuggle all that hard, basically. Basically, from here's the Juice WRLD story as I understand it, as I've been explained. Okay? Juice had a pilot that was like kind of paid off, right? They kind of knew Juice traveled with drugs and shit. Every rapper has a pilot like this, which is probably a scary thought if you're someone who flies a lot, but you know, whatever. The pilots aren't high, so I don't think it's that big a deal. Every rapper has somebody like this, though, a transport guy. And for some reason, the charter company that Juice went through did not have his normal pilot available to go on, and they took a risk, gambled on this fill in substitute pilot, basically, and that guy turned out to be a snitch. As they were landing, they found out that they were basically going to be arrested on the ground and investigated at the very least. So they panicked, and Juice attempted to swallow. Well, it did swallow. He attempted to hide via swallowing what he had on him. The guy that had the duffel bag with the like actual stash was obviously just going to like take the hit. I mean, that's one of the risks you take being part of a rapper's repertoire. You know, it's part of the Part of the risks. Nope, you become homeless because you do drugs. That's just not true. Most of the time when people become homeless, it's because they miss out on one too many paychecks. The only thing separating the average American from homelessness and destitution is like 3 missed checks. I think it's like 2/3 of Americans can't afford a $600 emergency. When you realize how many people are technically not living in poverty, but are so fucking close to it because of the depth of their debt and the shallowness of their savings, it'll make you fucking puke when you realize how many people are facing that. There are people who are homeless right now who are hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt because life just went upside down and now they are just like in a hopeless situation. And there's no possible way they're ever going to be able to recover from it meaningfully. One day you can be doing just fine with a little house with a basement and 4 bedrooms and 3 baths and a wife and 3 kids, and you've got a good paying job, and then the next day 6 months later you're fucking broke, homeless, living under a bridge, owing fucking hundreds of fucking thousands of dollars on that house, possibly divorced. And all it takes is one little shift in the economy in some cases. And yeah, once you're on the streets, it's pretty appealing to take drugs to cope with living on the streets. Trust me, I know. I lived in a minivan for 2 years. I it's a very fucking relieving thing. Luckily, I never fucked with any of the hard stuff, so it was pretty easy for me to reacclimate to house life. But if you end up in a really desperate situation and you get really hooked on booze or really hooked on some kind of hard drug or something, it can be really difficult for that person to reacclimate to society, even if they started out as a completely normal person with a job and a house and a life, the American dream. I know you might not have a heart inside that cold, dead husk of a fucking body, but I do, and I care about these people. And I see my brothers and sisters in their eyes. And if you don't, you're not. I won't say you're not human, but you're not thinking in a humane way. You've sealed up your heart to empathy if you cannot look in the eyes of the homeless and see your brothers and sisters. King Bugs with the $20. Thank you so much. Look at that. Does anybody want to double up that fucking dono? Get us on a fucking dono train? Hit it up. Thank you, King Bugs. I appreciate it a ton. We need a better social safety net. 100%. That's a lot of what I'm advocating for. You a femboy? No, I'm a trans woman. UBI when? I mean, there's an argument to be made that UBI is kind of like a capitalist solution for what really needs to be complete systemic overhaul. But yeah, UBI might be a good way to start. TK, you can say that in all caps as much as you want, but it is not going to change my diagnosis of gender dysphoria, nor is it going to change the recommended treatment according to medical science, which is transition. So if you're this way, cool. What will you do now? What do you mean? What will I do now? I came out as trans 6 years ago. Since that time, I've been like living a pretty like normal life. I mean, I guess it's been more interesting than most people's, but honestly, that hasn't been by virtue of my being out as trans. Maybe me being out as trans made me more like open to social situations that I would have been more reticent to participate in beforehand because I was like more like anxious and socially repressed before I came out. But I really don't feel like me coming out as trans has had much to do with the fact that I've had an interesting life over the last 5 years or so. You're cute, thanks. I appreciate it. Thinking is psychological. Very true, very true. Ooh, the chat was scrolled up a bit. I don't give a fuck if people transition, just don't use tax dollars to do it. What if we get a universal healthcare system where everybody's healthcare is paid for, including trans people? Why would that be a problem? Trans people are like 0.6% of the population. It's such a fucking tiny fraction of the overall medical services provided. If you're going down south but going up in elevation, which way are you going? Well, exactly how you just described. That's how you would have to say it. I mean, what way you're going would depend on the context and what you're saying in that given moment. Like if you're telling someone which way you're going geographically, you would say, "I'm headed south along the, you know, the Blue Mountain Ridge or something." But if you were describing your like vertical position relative to somebody else, like on a walkie-talkie or something, you would obviously say, "I'm coming up," or "I'm going up." First time I saw you was in the 24-hour Brett Keane show. Hey, classic. Brett Keane, you're not as slick as you think. Yeah, I was definitely running on all cinder blocks that day. I really enjoyed participating in that particular situation with those particular individuals. Sorry, individuals. Are you trans? Yes. See, you're ignoring someone challenging your opinions? Bro, it's just the luck of the draw. You're reading into it way too much. I enjoyed your stay in the 24-hour show. I'm glad someone did. That was contentious. Every time I appear on the show, it is. Some people really like me, other people hate my ass. Which I can't help but draw the comparison. It's funny. I don't ever think that I will have this position with Deep Fat Fried, but Paul had the exact same dynamic when he started on DP. So it's like people don't seem to recognize these patterns and how they replay, but I do, and so that's why I don't feel bad about it, you know? But it always does, of course, make me feel good to hear positive comments. Trans or gay? I'm bi and trans. I noticed that there are a lot of neurodivergent people on the LGBTQ and vice versa. Why do you think that is? I genuinely don't know. I wonder that myself. I wonder it all the time. I don't think science has a very good answer on it yet. Like, we know that there is some kind of correlation, but we don't exactly know what the correlation is quite yet. Hi, how are you? Do you have windows? Where I live, we are not allowed windows. What? How much do you recognize women's patterns to inculcate that into your transition? How much do you recognize women's patterns? I mean, I feel like that would be something I'm not really that qualified to answer. I think I recognize women's patterns pretty well. Um, I suppose, I suppose the women friends that I've got that hang out in chat sometimes could correct me if they feel like that's off, but um, I don't know that I could answer that without like a whole bucket of bias. You're asking for a self-assessment, in other words, and self-assessments are inherently dishonest and flawed. And I'm just being honest with you and leveling with you about that fact. Well, it's not that they're inherently dishonest, it's just that they're inherently flawed. People are going to insert biases about how they wish they thought or about how they want to think into how they believe they currently think, even if they try their best not to. Hi, I'm new here. What is this channel about? Socio-political commentary from a leftist direction, usually about current events, but more broadly about whatever the chat wants to talk about. I always insert, holy shit, 20 gift memberships. Thank you so much, King Bugs. I appreciate that a ton. Lord have mercy with the gifted memberships. Thank you so much. I always insert a few of the most recent news topics into the title as like suggestions for what we can talk about, and we try to get to everything I've got in there before we get to the end of the stream. Having trouble remembering what I put in there now, though, because it's so much later. But now I'm gonna look. Oh yeah, okay. So we talked about the insane Hasan Piker resolution. We have not talked about the fact that it's May Day, or at least it was yesterday, nor the huge Platner win in Maine. So which of those sounds more interesting? The room smells like corned beef hash. Actually, it smells like Febreze fabric extra strength. Let me ask you this. You're stranded on the street with a flat. What would you do? Stranded on the street with a flat? I mean, uh, first I would, open the fucking spare compartment and hope like hell that whoever last had to change a tire on that sumbitch left the fucking jack in it. That's the first thing I would do. Provided there was a jack in there and um, like a lug wrench or a tire iron or something in there, then I could change it to the spare, limp to a Walmart or whatever to get the tire replaced. But if I didn't have that, I'd probably be calling a tow truck. Like any other person, without the necessary tools to do what they need to do to get on to the next stage. I would cry. I would probably cry too, but I would cry while changing the tire. Why have most of the mass shootings this year been committed by LGBT? Have they? That's an interesting read on the situation, especially when there was just recently a right wing gunman who idolized the Columbine shooters who let loose at a Mexican temple. What was that, last week? Week before? I know people have short attention spans these days, but watch the news. You'll find out that there's a lot more happening in this country than what you're seeing posted on social media memes. Then move the fuck out if you don't like it. Brain dead take. Totally brain dead take. Totally smooth brained. Would literally slick water right off of it take. A take so smooth you could get it licensed as a bowling ball. Your brain is as smooth as a baby's ass. Let me explain why. America is a democracy. What that means is that if you don't like it here, there is actually a mechanism by which you are encouraged to make that known, to see if other people feel the same way, and ask your government to make it better. Not only that, but there are mechanisms by which you can find politicians who align more closely with your ideals and vote for those politicians. But the reason why so many people with your politics have that to say in response to anybody who's got different ideas is because you know that your ideas cannot win out in the marketplace of ideas. You know that an even argument on solid footing on both sides favors the left. So what you would prefer to happen instead is that everybody who disagrees with you just leaves. It's a toddler solution to engaging in politics. It's what it's what a 4-year-old might think of as a way to litigate their problems. Well, if you don't like the rules for my bedroom, then just get out then. But you are not 4, and America is not your bedroom. It's a democracy. And I'm just as much a part of it as you are. For better or for worse. One less gay. Don't worry. You'll come out someday and you'll feel better. Thank you, King Bugs, for the additional gifted 10 memberships. Thank you a ton. If you've been watching the stream and you've been enjoying it, consider donating either via Super Chat, like some people have done earlier, or via Cash App, which is down below, or via gifting memberships, like King Bugs has been doing for the last 10 minutes. It's a really great way to help out the channel. All those gifted memberships go to people who are already subscribed, so they get to see a huge backlog of streams with more esoteric subject matters and stuff like that. It's a really cool thing. Thank you for supporting the channel. I appreciate it a ton. Weed isn't helping your psychosis. I don't have psychosis. Phoebe, you are incredibly patient with your chat. I have to be. It's kind of the niche I've chosen to occupy, right? I'm the crazy leftist trans lady on YouTube Vertical Lives that argues with MAGA and allows them to say more depraved shit than most other lefty channels allow them to say. That necessitates me being patient with them. Otherwise, I would just be in, like, red-faced, red-furied fucking lol-cow rage all day long. Basically, having the conduct that I have with my chat is how I preserve my reputation as a somewhat interesting and creative, legitimate YouTuber, and don't end up falling completely into the lol-cow atmosphere, you know? Because low production quality, fat, kind of retarded. I mean, I fit some of the archetypes, okay? The main thing that distinguishes me is the fact that I'm pretty good at fucking on trolls and using them for content rather than allowing them to control the narrative, right? I've got things that I want to say, and I will use your comments as a vehicle to say those things. You will not lead me down a path. I will lead you down the path and use your comments to do it. That was a weird noise. Whatever the fuck that is. Okay. Oh god, dude. Skinwalker, no. I think it's just some kind of owl or something. It's just, I don't know. Living out in the woods, you'll hear all kinds of shit, and I swear every year I hear something I never heard before. Which is probably good. It probably means that slowly but surely the ecology is becoming more restored to the way it used to be before settlement. Why the fuck do we need so many fucking flags? I kind of agree with you, low key, but I also don't really have a problem with it. Like, on the one hand, I kind of find it a little bit annoying that every single time I see any of the flags that aren't like the standard three or four, I have to like go look it up and remind myself what that one means. But at the same time, I never fuck on people for that because I understand that it makes people feel better and more like specified. It serves as a useful shorthand. It might help them like add to their like color palette or something. I don't know. Let people enjoy things is my usual stance. No, the father, I don't. What's the benefit to being trans? I mean, like, none if you're not, like, a trans person. But if you are a trans person, the benefit to being out as trans is, excuse me, generally you have less social anxiety. You're able to be more confident about yourself because what you're presenting is a continuously closer vision of who you really are. There are like fulfillment benefits that are hard for me to describe because I'm not a psychologist, but that are easy for me to describe in terms of how they make me feel. I just don't know that I can explain them in a nuanced way in the types of like psychological terminology that somebody trained in that science would be able to use to describe it. But um, just like having people know and recognize that you are what you express yourself as has a tremendously beneficial effect on the psychology of a trans person. If you have to preface something you're saying with we all think or we all believe or I speak for all of us or something like that, maybe consider that you might be trying to loop in a majority in order to support a very weak argument that you know doesn't actually do much to change someone's mind. So instead, you're trying to create a ghost of peer pressure to use that as a cudgel instead. Well, I got news for you. I don't give a fuck how you or the rest of the world thinks. Unless medical science at some point roundly disproves the idea of trans people being real, I'm going to continue believing the legitimacy of trans people like myself. Thank you. And by the way, that does not seem to be happening. In fact, every single study that's done into the matter seems to indicate just what I've been talking about over the last 20 minutes or so, that trans people are, in fact, real, that our experiences are legitimate, and that we are a well studied aspect of medical science that has been given a lot of attention over the last 100 years, increasing pretty much every decade until the current fervor, where at this point we've got quite a few different research institutions that have scientists working through grants or direct employment to study some of these issues, among a myriad of others. Those eyes are so dead and empty. I think that those are the lulled eyes of a pot smoker, friend, not the dead eyes of a soulless person. So if someone is trans, dating trans, who's gay and who's straight, Well, okay, so if I was a trans woman and I was dating a man, that would be like a straight relationship, technically. I think it would technically also it would maybe also be kind of queer because like I'm a trans woman, and even if they're like a cis man, it could still be kind of like queer because I'm a trans woman. But that's up to individual interpretations, really. Whereas if I were to be in a relationship with a woman or like a gender queer person, that would almost certainly be a queer relationship of some kind. Doesn't it get confusing to explain? No, not really. Is gender a spectrum rather than only binary? Yeah. And I mean, that's just demonstrable within our present society. Even if you were to exclude trans people from those metrics, you would still have to recognize that society sees gender along um, a spectrum, not an even delineation. Make sure you hit that like button, by the way. Every single time you hit that like button, it's another chance to stream out to even more people, which increases the quality of your viewing pleasure by increasing the number of people who engage in the chat. I believe that if you're not going to pass, which you don't, that you should have thick skin and expect the backlash. Not only do I expect the backlash, I make money off the backlash. So, I don't know what your comment there is meant to, like, imply, but I feel like to the degree that that is advice, I've already taken it. Do you believe that this chat should have freedom of speech? It does. The only people who ever get banned out of this chat are people who spam or people who say repetitive bullshit. Not all trans people are obsessed with passing. Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not like super obsessed with passing. That being said, like based on the number of people that use she her pronouns with me when referring to me in public or whatever, it seems like most of the time people do think I pass. I don't know. It seems like most people just think, "Oh, that's a big tall fat lady." I don't know. That's fine with me. I am a big tall fat lady. I'm just glad that's the perception and not, big, awkward, tall, fat dude. I could tell that that's not the perception anymore. Even when people can tell I'm trans, like people either think I'm just a slightly strange looking, particularly tall trans or cis lady, or they think like, oh, that's a trans woman. But either way, they know I'm not a man, and I mean, that's a big step up for me in my confidence. Depends on what you say, Dalton. If you're being horrid for shock value, I will be here watching. Yeah, that's the thing. There is like a limit, right? Here's the thing. I will debate an extreme position, but not with somebody that's only holding it to see what kind of a rise they can get out of somebody. And that's another thing. It's a real subtlety, but I think my mods kind of have subtly picked up on that and my resistance to interact with those people. I love interacting with people with extreme, crazy viewpoints, even fascist viewpoints. I just don't like arguing with someone who's only doing it for the bit, who doesn't believe a word of it, who doesn't really think that way, and who is only engaging in that because they recognize that it's currently the most socially untenable thing they can do. You play guitar? I 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 do. You play gu You saying everybody likes wieners ain't true at all? Who the fuck said that? Do you know how to play the harmonica or banjo? I actually do know how to play the banjo a little bit. Although, I will say, with like fretted instruments, if you can play one, you can pretty much learn to play them all. Although there are certain techniques that don't necessarily translate over. But there's a lot to do. My hands are frozen solid. Holy shit. Okay, be right back. Okay. Boy, I'm cold as shit. Chat, when do we allow the asexuals in the gay group? Why wouldn't they be allowed? Why would asexual people not be included? I would say if, and you know, maybe asexual people would disagree with this or whatever, but I would say that if you genuinely feel no sexual attraction towards anyone of any makeup, or very limited sexual attraction, I would say that, yeah, that's an aberration from standard, which I think qualifies you for sexual minority status and therefore inclusion in the LGBTQIA banner. Hey, what's up, gentle heathen? Where are you from again? Iceland? Longer I live, the more asexual I've gotten. Weirdly enough, me too. I'm not nearly like, not, that's a bad way to put it for me, because I still have plenty of sex drive, but I feel like it's way less important in my life than it used to be, which is probably good. Um, I don't know what the fuck I just heard. I have no idea. It sounded like an animal dying or something. But the dog didn't bark. Also sounded weirdly electrical, maybe? I don't know. It's creepy as fuck. I hope it was just the sound of some fucking. Maybe it was just the sound of a rabbit dying. Maybe a fucking hawk or a fucking. Or an owl or something got a hold of a. Maybe a coyote. I don't fucking know. Sorry about that. The show must go on. That was horrifying. Yeah, probably some animal. Yeah. I mean, like, this fucking chances are good that it was not some, you know, crazy shit. I haven't heard any cars on the road or anything like that. I don't see any lights outside. It was just a fucking creepy ass motherfucking sound. God, dude. I'm too fucking mentally ill for the world to be playing fucking tricks on me like that. What is the biggest disagreement with Poltergeist you've had online? Oh boy, the biggest one? The biggest one. Um, fuck. I don't know. Let me think about it. Honestly, I might have to go with this national divorce shit. Um, because I think it is my most significant point of disagreement with Paul. And it's something we had this small debate on DFF about. I want to talk to TJ about doing like a proper like scheduled thing with Paul. Maybe like they can do it on DFF if they want to, but I want to set up something with them where because I think it would be good content for the both of us, whether they host it on DFF or the Poltergeist or whatever. I think devote like 2 hours to national divorce and 2 hours to eugenics because I don't talk about it a whole lot because I feel like I don't disagree with. I don't talk about it a lot because I think ultimately, when it comes down right to it, I think what Paul would advocate for when it comes to his eugenics ideals is just more women being allowed to get abortions if they, and more women having access to genetic testing and stuff like that to be able to determine if their baby's going to be born with some kind of horrible birth defect or something. And if that's all the outcome of it would be, then ultimately what's the harm of it? But I do kind of disagree philosophically with the idea that it needs to be like a social imperative to like get rid of Down syndrome people, which is something that he's talked about, or like autistic people. And I'm like, I mean, I feel like these people are pretty well loved by their families for the most part. And I feel like we can build an equitable and empathetic enough society to accommodate those people. A lot of them already have jobs. I mean, I'm autistic. I've got employment. I'm a monetized YouTuber. I've worked regular jobs for 10 years before that. So clearly, some of us are capable of being on our own without all that much intervention to begin with. But those of us who do need more intense intervention, most of us still end up finding, or most people with autism to that degree still end up finding something that they do in life that gives them meaning and purpose. and oftentimes that adds to society in some greater fashion. I think half the people that say they want a national divorce just want an old-fashioned revolution under the guise of a mutually agreed split. Yeah, and I think that that's pretty much where Paul lands. I don't know if that he would appreciate this aspersion being cast, maybe, and I don't mean it to be an aspersion, but I think that when it comes to Paul's position on national divorce, it is less out of a genuine, like he couches it under these terms of fiscal responsibility. Like we're just throwing good money after bad by continuing to fund the bigoted South and allowing their politics to infest the rest of the country. We need to just cut them off. But I don't actually think that that's the incentive. I think that the incentive is vengeance. I think that Paul wants to see the South suffer for its deep and many and varied and admittable, crimes against the broader whole, basically. I think he wants to see some kind of maybe mass revolution where people actually do fight it out, and this national divorce thing just ends up being the catalyst for that. And I can see where that's coming from, but I don't think that it's a good solution, especially when there are things that we could do that would not involve bloodshed, that would not involve civil war. He doesn't give a shit about the poor black and white people stuck there. I I don't think that it's that he doesn't give a shit. I think that Paul does give a shit. I just think that maybe there's a bitterness clouding his mind. It's something that's understandable. Like I said, given the South's many and varied crimes against the greater whole, but I don't think that it's like I don't think it's a good recipe for making a better world. Let's put it that way. Oh well, who the fuck is Paul? Paul's ego. Hello, womanish thing. Despite great things about the South, them states been a net negative for the country as a whole. Right, but the solution there is to take them over, a la the Reconstruction era, and to ensure that the elections there aren't being tampered with, and that the tax money isn't being misspent. Because if you just literally those two things alone, federal oversight over fucking elections and the apparatus for that, and federal oversight over all expenditures would fix most of the problems in the Deep South. Those two things alone. Obviously, I think a comprehensive Reconstruction policy would also include some other necessary improvements, but like I'm talking about a solution that, yes, is going to involve throwing some more money at the problem, but every solution is going to involve throwing more money at the problem. Keeping things as it is going to involve throwing more money at the problem. Fixing it, whether that's through a national divorce or my solution, is going to involve throwing more money at the problem. Either the West Coast is going to be spending that, sending that tax money up the road to the federal government to help subsidize the southern states and the Midwestern states, or they're going to be sending it up the road to their own like coalition of Western Coast states to be beefing up their military supplies and beefing up their logistical fucking routes and shit, you know? Like, either way, you're going to be spending a ton of money, and I just think that it would be better to spend that money in a way that leaves a North American continent that is as whole as it can be. Yeah, that's something I do disagree with Paul about. Um, that and the pointless doomer attitude towards electoralism. And I don't even believe in voting as a valid avenue for democracy. King Bugs, by the way, I modded you that way you can't get banned out of here because I don't want that to ever happen. Plus, I want to make sure that I see your chats because you're a regular contributor in here. You always have good things to say. Plus, you pay me quite a bit. So I want to make sure that I see your fucking chats. You don't have to mod, though. I don't expect you to be fucking looking out for the chat. You can if you want to, but it's mostly just to make sure that I notice your messages and make sure you don't get banned. But yeah, I also think that Paul is a little bit doomer when it comes to voting. I think that it would be nice. Not it would be nice. I think that Paul could do a more effective job at spreading his message if he would razor focus in on um, specific critiques of electoralism. Because I've got critiques of electoralism. You've got critiques of electoralism. But I think it's very important, for example, to distinguish between the national level Democratic Party, the national level political machines, and, for example, your local Democratic mayor or Democratic fucking House member in your state house or whatever. I think that there's an important distinction there. Yes, the closer you get to national power, the more corporate influence is going to control your campaign, and the more you have to watch out for them, and the less you can trust them. But I think that that's a relationship that can be measured, you know? And the closer you get to local and grassroots, the more trustworthy that they can become. Doesn't mean they're always going to necessarily be more trustworthy, but you've got avenues for accountability with somebody that is like a local or state level politician that you can really never have with national level politicians without forming a national movement. I'm pretty aligned with Doomer Paul, I must admit. I mean, there's ways in which I align with Doomer Paul, and I think on a bad day, a really depressive day, I think I really align with Doomer Paul. But I think that, you know what? Here's what I think. Paul has spent most of the last 20, 25 years advocating for what he believes in, spending time at protests, telling others about how he came to the things that he believes, helping others to see things the way he's seen them, arguing against shit libs and moderate centrist Democrats, arguing for labor leftism. And I think the old man is tired. And I respect the fuck out of Paul's ego. And I'm not gonna besmirch his name by calling him a doomer anymore tonight. Because I don't really think he is a doomer. I think he's a disappointed optimist, and I can see why he's disappointed. Most of that 26 years he spent doing that, the 25, 26, 30 years, whatever it's been, I don't know how long he'd consider himself a leftist. Most of it's been spent watching the country get worse. I still have hope. I still have faith. I still have a lot of optimism. Part of that's because I have to. I have a kid. I have, you know, a good 25 years of life left in me worth of advocacy. Another good 20 years at the very least. So I've still got that fiery attitude. I've still got a lot of that. I'm still hope pilled in perhaps a way you guys don't see in Paul anymore. But I kind of understand how he's come to that position, I guess. And while I do disagree with a lot of his prescriptions, I don't know that I blame him for them. I also don't think that there's any changing his mind because these are not necessarily things he's come to um, like because he heard some really compelling argument towards them. It's, to his credit, long periods of conversation and thought about these topics. And I would love to argue with these topics about him because I know the old fuck loves to argue. But at the same time, you know, I can't blame him for feeling the way he does. I know so many people that went doomer after Obama, not really my opinion, but an observation. Literally so many people went doomer after Obama because they genuinely believed in the message that Obama ran on. And I heard Vosh say the stupidest fucking shit on a clip or something earlier. I think it was a clip from earlier today. I don't remember, but I watched it earlier today, and he said something about how, like, Obama ran on a vague campaign of hope and change. That is not. Like, all he remembers about the Obama campaign are the fucking campaign slogans. He doesn't remember, like, the policies. Obama was running on, like, a universal health care fucking package, basically. Not really, but he was basically, like, it was called a public option, right? Back then, that was the rhetoric. Public option. The idea was everybody's going to have access to government funded healthcare. Private healthcare will still exist, but you'll have access to this taxpayer funded system, or this government funded system, however you want to look at it. And that ended up getting completely dropped from the platform after he actually got elected, and the ACA started getting worked out. Um, he was talking about withdrawing from all these foreign wars and ending the forever wars. He didn't do that. He's talking about scaling down those things. He actually scaled up the drone war. He talked about shutting down Guantanamo Bay. He actually continued to send prisoners there. So, you know, I can see why a lot of people look at that candidacy and that campaign and they're like, yep, can't support that. And then tax us if we didn't have insurance. Right. So basically took what was a really, really good proposal and turned it into a dog shit proposal that was mostly just a gift to the insurance industry. The only thing it really fixed about the American healthcare industry is that now you can't get excluded from the right to have insurance just for having pre-existing conditions. Yay! Vosh is kind of reactionary, not gonna lie. He's hella reactionary. Vosh has been saying the most asinine shit lately. Talking about, like, he said something to the tune of that, like, leftist admiration for working class values and the working class as a demographic and shit is stupid and misinformed and like anti-Marxist and shit. He's saying that, like, socialism has always been brought about by college educated liberals, my guys. It's always been college kids with dyed hair. That has always been the avenue by which socialism has been achieved. Never mind the fact that that particular social dynamic didn't really emerge until the 1970s. It's just retarded. It's fucking so stupid. Like, that is not what the socialists who fought for the fucking everything that. And he knows better. He knows better. He knows better. That's what gets me about it. He knows better. He's a college educated guy. He's got like a bachelor's in fucking sociology or some shit. He fucking knows better. And he's talked about as much on his earlier content. He's talked about how a lot of the early heroes of socialism were factory workers, farm workers, people like on the front lines of labor, engaging in massive union protests in the hills of Kentucky and West Virginia, in the mountains of Pennsylvania, in the fucking coal fields of Colorado. He knows this shit. And yet he says this stupid shit day in and day out about everybody who's not part of his little fucking horde of weirdos. Like, I'm a rural Mississippian. I'm trans. I'm far left. Something like 2/5 of Mississippians voted for Kamala Harris, and not all of them were in Jackson. So where the fuck does this stupid ass idea that the average American is retarded or unable to grasp class consciousness or any of this shit come from? Where does it come from? A desire, ultimately, in my opinion, to have the most reactionary position possible, to have the most doomer position possible, basically. like, I'm not saying that we're like just around the corner from a socialist revolution, but I am saying the material conditions have never been better. And he, with his particular kind of content platform and what he does for a living and how high up in that tier he is, stands to benefit quite a bit from things staying just the way they are. The last election was two shitty choices. I fully fucking agree. Thank you, Nanbot, for the 5 gifted memberships. I appreciate that a ton. And Kingbugs for the 10 gifted memberships. Look at that. Gifted memberships all the way around. We ain't doomer enough? I guess not. It was, but we made the shittier choice. Well, yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, at least, like, in certain things, certainly. I do think Kamala Harris would also be prosecuting war with Iran, and I actually think it's kind of scary to think about because I think she might be doing it better. Not better morally, but better in terms of, like, efficacy. Certainly her Department of Defense wouldn't be called the Department of War. Certainly the manufacturing consent campaign would have started a lot earlier in the term, and I don't think we would have started engaging in hostilities as quickly as we did. But when it comes to like immigration enforcement, I think that she would have pretty much continued the same anti-immigrant but less visibly so policies of Biden and Obama. Like, I don't think she would have been that much better, but yeah, she would have been better in certain ways, for sure. I don't know, honestly. The woman who ran as different races who had no voice repeated the same answers. Well, that's the thing. Kamala Harris was also not exactly like. Here's the thing, I'm incredibly critical of Kamala Harris as a candidate because if you look back at her candidacy in 2020, she tried to run for the Democratic candidacy in 2020. She didn't primary in a single state. Not a single state selected her in the Democratic primary, and yet she ended up getting chosen as Joe Biden's VP. Um, you know, different theories as to why that might be, but leaving that aside, she was chosen as VP, and it ended up being the winning ticket against Trumpism that year, but not by that much. I think it would have been a way bigger landslide if it had been like Bernie and Warren. Oh, what a dream ticket that would have been. That's what should have happened on Bloody Tuesday instead of what actually happened. Instead of what actually happened, which was Warren basically splitting the votes, I think that Warren and Sanders should have joined forces at the last moment and been like, nope, Warren's dropping out to become my fucking VP candidate, and we're fucking joint ticket. Who knows, man? Who knows? But that's not what happened, and instead we got Joe Biden. And in 2024, she was only selected as the nominee because she was the incumbent's VP. She was basically a party approved and selected candidate, and nobody likes that. I wasn't crazy about Warren. I voted for Bernie in the primary. Well, here's the thing, though, Riley. You would have still voted for Bernie in the primary if, in the primary election, Warren had dropped out, endorsed Bernie, and announced that she was going to be running alongside Bernie as his VP, right? Like, I'm just saying, think about it, man. Elizabeth Warren is open to progressive policies in a way a lot of centrist moderate libs like her are not, but she's also a Massachusetts Democrat, very kind of centrist moderate lib in all the right ways, and would have been like the same kind of tempering perceived force. She would have been perceived as the same tempering force that Joe Biden was in Obama's candidacy. But I think that she would have actually been a more effective vehicle for helping Bernie achieve his progressive vision. I mean, Elizabeth Warren certainly got a better pro, like she's got a better pro worker, like generally progressive record than Biden does. That's for sure. And then Biden did at the time of his being selected as VP. Hmm. Who wants to have a fight to the death with me? I'll do it, Taylor. They don't want the win. How will the Overton window shift if Dems keep winning and have nothing but economic reform? That's against the interests of their corporate sponsors. That's very true. That's a very good point, Wilbur. Yeah, that you really are touching on such a fucking good point though, Wilbur. The reason why the Dems are having so many problems electorally, the reason why they're having so much trouble is because they are fundamentally limited by the fact that they are a bourgeoisie party, just like the Republicans, and therefore the only arena in which they can really meaningfully distinguish themselves is social issues, which are only compelling when the economy is doing well. And you can only shepherd the economy so well when you are beholden to corporate interests to the degree that the Democrats have allowed themselves to become. It's a damn far sight. The modern Democratic Party is a damn far sight from the party of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who once famously said of the hatred he was receiving from the billionaire class, the capitalists, and the bankers of the time, "I welcome their hatred." The modern Democratic Party would vomit at the thought of any hatred or distrust or distaste of them by the billionaire elite. But it is not a Democratic Party like that that won America the 8-hour workday standardized, that helped create OSHA, that helped create the Social Security Administration, that helped create all of the fundamentals of the New Deal. Eleanor Roosevelt was based, yes. Yes. Listen, I'm not saying that both parties are manufacturing the current depression. They are. But they're definitely profiting off of it. Right. And their corporate sponsors are profiting massively off of it too. And I really hate to say it, but that's why we are looking at such an opportunity. And that's why I think we have such a ripe opportunity for change in this country. Because pretty much everybody is starting to see how the sausage is made. And it's pretty much like it's disgusting, almost all of us. And I don't know how long that can go on before people start to wake up and realize how badly they're being screwed and how far everything's gotten and how just how dog shit everything is. How long can that go on? Really, literally, how long can it go on? 10 years? I don't think so. Not with how bad it's gotten, not with how aware everyone is. And the thing that gets me is that if you want to trace down all of our current problems to the core, it does all come down to the moneyed interests. Why? For what reason? Why are we so beholden to Israel? Why? What is the reason for that? Why? If you ask the Nazis, they'll tell you it's because, Jews run everything, which is stupid. Obviously, stupid thing to believe. Horribly stupid thing to believe. Um, if you ask the liberals, they'll tell you it's because the Republicans are allowed to come to power every few years. But if you want to know the truth, it's because of moneyed interests. It's because Israel is a very effective, like both rhetorically and like pragmatically, it's a really convenient forward operating base for Western powers to maintain control over the Middle East. for purposes of resource extraction. It seems the interests in Israel are too compounded to have a genuine conversation about it. You think so? Is it true that in America you learn mostly about American history only? Yes. This is something I've actually always thought it'd be interesting for me and you to talk about because I think I remember you and Paul having a conversation about this. Yes, in America, you mostly only learn about American history. You'll be taught some of the basics of world history, but it's like a lot of it's ancient history, though. It's funny, right? Um, I didn't, for example, learn about the Ottoman Empire in high school. Maybe a thing or two here or there, but it really wasn't focused on in terms of like a world power or anything like that. And the older I get, the more. Thank you, King Bugs, for the gifted memberships. I appreciate that a ton. But the older I get, the more I think that that might be on purpose. Because if you learn about the Ottoman Empire and the Caliphate, then you learn a little bit more about the real history behind the Middle Eastern conflict. And depending on how much you learn, you might end up feeling differently about it. Maybe you think, well, maybe the Middle East should be under Islamic rule. I don't know. Um, it makes you wonder, though, at a certain point. I'll give you another example. Chinese history. In American high schools, you will learn about ancient Chinese history, at least a little bit about it. You might even learn about like the different dynasties of China and stuff. But for some reason, the history just seems to like cut off when it comes to modern China, Mao's rise to power, etc., etc. I learned about the Ottomans in high school, and it was a Christian private school. Well, that's probably why, though. That's probably why, ironically, private schools actually do, even if they're Christian, tend to provide a higher quality of education here in America than the public schools. Not universally, but in a lot of instances. Um, it's just one of the many downsides to privatizing the fuck out of everything. You create a system where people that have access to that get a better education than people who have access to the publicly available stuff, just generally speaking. Obviously, there's differences based on geography and everything else. The only thing Chinese we got in a curriculum was some anti-communist book about some girl under Mao Zedong's rule in 7th grade. Zhao Zedong. What a fucked up name that guy's got. You always hear about these atheists talking about why is it you always hear these atheists talking about Christian led governments that killed people, but you never hear them talk about the atheists that committed atrocities? How many atheists got killed under the rind of Zhao Zedong? What a fucked up name that guy's got. Sorry. Paul Zigo officially retired his Keenology mantle the other day. He made another one of those announcements, and I'm sick of him making that announcement and nobody taking up the mantle, so I'm officially making my counter announcement. I have picked up the Keenologist mantle. I am now going to be a-logging Brett Keen. I've been for a while, but your girl's dedicated now. I'm sick of Brett Keen scouring the name of the deep south, or not the deep south, but the southeast Missouri. I'm sick of him souring the name of my people with his disgusting presence online and off. He'll be back. He's also in a cycle. Brett Keen's always around. He's always around. Brett Keane is always around. He might be watching this stream for all I know. We're in the same time zone and that motherfucker never sleeps. I mean, I think he does, but here's my theory about Brett Keane. I think that, and I think me and Brett might have a similarity in this. I think if I were allowed to have my optimal schedule, I would probably wake up around 1:30 p.m. every day. And I know that sounds like fucked to some people, but whatever. It's just like I prefer being up at night. I like being up at night. I love the nighttime. I like the afternoon. I also like the morning, but it's complicated. And I think that Brett is very much that way. I think that Brett Keane stays up pretty much every day until like 6 in the morning and then stays asleep probably until 12 or 2 and then wakes up, has a morning smoke, probably in his bedroom. If it's a nice day, maybe he hobbles out to the fucking screened in back porch. He's got like a mosquito net back there. Brett Keane, you're not as slick as you think. Paul will be back, I mean. Paul takes Brett and waves. Ah, yes. You are true. Or I'm sorry, you are correct. And that is true. But ultimately, I'm more just joking about the fact that he's always making these, like, I'm retired from Keenology announcements, and nobody ever goes along and takes up the mantle. So it's like, fuck it. I can make Brett Keane content. I've still got energy for making fun of that fat fucking manatee. Yes, as a white woman, I could get hit with marijuana possession a couple times and not go to jail. Blackmail does not have the same odds. Yeah, literally. That's a great way to talk about it. A white woman who gets caught with weed in her car is a lot more likely to um, be slapped with a summons or something, or to kind of get away with it just outright than a black man is in the same exact situation. Same exact amount, same car, everything else being the same. A black guy is probably going to go to jail for that, and a white woman stands a 50-50 chance of walking away with no charges. At this point, we need a whole team of keenologists. Pessimist Productions can be our anonymous benefactor. uh, Sorry, I was just sitting here thinking about, like, how hard would it be to set up a fund that is specifically managed with the specific intention of producing um, dividends payable to a team of keenologists? The Missouri Manatee Study Fund. Holy shit, 20 fucking dollars from King Bugs. Phoebe, any chance for music? Only if you feel like it. Well, since I closed the door and things have been kind of calm, I think I can do some music before I get out of here. I've only got like 20 minutes left. I've already stayed way longer than I meant to. King Bug saved my whole family from a burning building. Damn. He's so humble. keep your smoking off screen, unlike Paul. Is that out of courtesy, Phoebe? No, it's actually out of You'll notice something actually. Paul also keeps his smoking either off screen or inconspicuous when he's on the main show, DFF. Paul's a lot less. He's a lot more conspicuous with his smoking when he's just on Ideology or something like that, and that's because he's not really trying to like grow Ideology or use it as like a main source of income, whereas this channel kind of is my DFF, if you get what I mean. It is my main source of income, and so it's kind of like a matter of channel preservation, basically. It's to try and prevent the stream from getting age-gated. It's to give people less things to complain about in the chat and to call out in the chat. It's for a number of reasons. Courtesy is actually not among them. I really don't care that people know that I smoke. I just, YouTube kind of is a little punitive about it. It's actually YouTube's TOS. Well, that's the thing, though, is like the community guidelines, if you look at them, say that you can show drug consumption, but it has to be for educational, research, or informational purposes, I think, and or it can be for like entertainment purposes, I think, but there's also like rules on like you can't show overconsumption, and if you do, it can be age gated. Like it's a lot more complicated than merely like, oh, it is banned in TOS. If it was banned outright in TOS, then there couldn't be a single piece of media on YouTube that shows that. But there's plenty of media on YouTube that shows that. So it's not like it's banned in TOS. And the community guidelines are written to be intentionally vague so that they're, applicable when they desire it to be. YouTube ain't what it used to be, if that ain't the God's honest truth. Covered with cans of food, filtered water and pictures of you. And I'm not coming out until this is all over. And I'm looking through the glass where the light bends at the cracks. And I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, pretending that the echoes belong to someone that I used to know. And will become silhouettes till the bodies finally go. Wanted to walk through the empty streets, feel something solid underneath my feet. But all the radio reports recommended that we stay indoors, because the air outside will make our cells divided at an alarming rate. And the cells will divide until the pus fills and the skin cracks and they explode. And it won't be a pretty sight till we become bodies finally go home. Silhouettes and the bodies finally go. Ow. I cut my nail too deep, I guess, earlier. Yay, Postal Service. Yes, indeed. That was, We Will Become Silhouettes by the Postal Service. Callus says, ow. You're a lady of many talents, babies. Aw, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I try. I got some things I do okay, I guess. I try not to take myself too seriously. Peace, Snow. Have a good night. I'm glad you enjoyed the stream. I don't think I actually know all the words to that song anymore, but that was a good song back in the day, back when I knew it, back when I knew it. Okay. Alrighty, there's a song I can play. This is an anti-war song, by the way. How many roads must a man walk down before you can call him a man? And how many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? And how many times must those cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many years must a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? And how many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? And how many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. And how many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? Yes, and how many years must one man have before he can hear those people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friends, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Hell yeah. Oh, you want me to do I Can Hear It Coming in the Air Tonight? I don't know that I could do that one, actually. Holy shit, I think I can actually play this song. Alrighty. Oh, this is gonna be so fun. You guys know what I'm about to play? Some kind of way out of here, said the joker to the thief. There's too much confusion, I can't get no relief. Businessmen, they drink my wine, come and dig my earth. None of them along the line know that any of it is worth. Gotta scroll down. No reason to get excited. The thief he kindly spoke. There are many here among us who feel that life is but a joke. But you and I, we've been through that, and this is not our fate. So let us not talk falsely now. The hour's getting late. Gotta scroll down again. All along the watchtower, princess kept the view, while all the women came and went, barefoot servants true. Outside in the distance, a wild cat did growl. Two riders were approaching, the wind began to howl. I've never even attempted to play that song, so I'm just glad that it turned out as good as it did. Well, I think I'm about petered out for the night, y'all. All along the watchtower. I think I have described Phoebe's skill as music as being an attempt to capture the whole feel of a single of a song. She does it well. Yeah, that's how you've described it exactly, actually, and that is what I've always been trying to go for. Genuinely, I try to, with my limited vocals and guitar, capture the best I can of the feel of a song. If I can play a few of the riffs, I will, and especially if I can intersperse it with the rhythm. And a big thing that I've learned how to do, mostly from learning to play when I was listening to a lot of City and Color and Neil Halstead, is there are a lot of songs that are meant to be played with a full band that you can still get a lot of the same sound out of playing solo just by incorporating the right hammer-ons and pull-offs. It's like when I'm playing Nutshell by Alice in Chains, in order to get the same, sort of, some of the same sounds I would feel out of my, ex-friend's bass, I might um, do particular hammer-ons and slides to kind of get that same chord feeling, even if the same sound isn't exactly there. I'm just glad other people perceive that in me, and that it's not just a futile attempt on my part. All the new members comment after the video. The algorithm loves that shit. That's true. Very true. Good night, Melanie. Comment fuck Palantir, yeah, if you want to. We are Charlie Kirk, we carry the flame. I thought of a funny variation to that. We are all Ikameni, we carry the flame. I've been thinking about writing some Iranian propaganda songs. What do you guys make of that? Think it's a good move? Good move? I don't know. It just seems like Iranian propaganda music is like a recent nascent genre of music gaining tension or gaining traction in the Western world. Thinking about throwing my hat in the ring. Yeah, we rewrote it for my friend as we are XX, we are a twink. That's fucking great. The show ain't over till Phoebe plays the guitar. Yeah, true. Yeah, and the show's not really over till I put the guitar away. Unfortunately, the show is going to have to be over for you guys here in just a minute. I've been going way longer than I meant to tonight. I'm going to have to get better about that. Oh my god. Why? 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 I feel. Oh my god. You guys need to go read Ishmael, okay? Find an audiobook of it and listen to it, even if it's just the first few chapters. Because I need you guys to understand the metaphor of the tiger in the cage. because I feel like I get into these patterns where I just find myself asking why. And the reason why I just get stuck in a pattern of why is because there's a lot of whys to be asked. But I am human, therefore able to discern some of the finer details. The biggest why is like, why are we all expected to operate along the same rigid lines? Bro, Iran don't kill gays, they force trans them. Get it right. Yeah, exactly. You're thinking of Afghanistan. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead. Iranian propaganda music is having a moment. Yeah, that's true. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and go. I'm gonna go to bed now, or at least try to here soon. Congratulations over the dozen new members. Use your memberships wisely. Hey, yeah, for sure. Thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you for your donations and your time. Um, and I appreciate it a ton.